Okay, good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Sorry, I should have mentioned it. Today's run of show is going to start with Chief Madeira Arredondo, Minneapolis Chief of Police, followed by Sheriff David Hutchinson. That's Hutchinson, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. Then it'll be Colonel Matt Langer, M-A-T-T, Langer, L-A-N-G-E-R, Minnesota Department of Public Safety. Nope, strike that. Minnesota State Patrol, my apologies. Followed by John Harrington, Harrington, Minnesota Department of Public Safety Commissioner, followed by Major General Chauvin, S-H-A-W-N, Mankey, M as in Mary, A, N as in Nora, K, King as in King, E as in Edward, Minnesota National Guard Adjunct, and Chief Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, Tyner, T-Y-N-E-R, Chief, Minneapolis Fire Department. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Executive Leadership of the Operation Safety Net weekly briefing. As our executive leadership team had promised, we would be coming forward to the state of Minnesota, our residents, our businesses, to provide updates during the trial. So I'm so pleased again to have the leadership representing Minnesota's public safety apparatus standing behind me. Today, of the first day of the trial, we had approximately at one time up to about 1,000 individuals practicing their civic participation. As leadership of the Operation Safety Net, we have talked for the last several months that this was going to be focused on, one, First Amendment rights, peaceful assembly and free speech, as well as prevention. And so I want to extend a thank you to all of those individuals who came out this morning to do just that, to exercise their First Amendment right of free speech. And it was done peacefully. And as we've said from the very beginning, we can have large gatherings and we can do so with them being peaceful. And so for all of you who participated in your First Amendment constitutional right, we want to say thank you for doing that peacefully. With that, I'm also happy again to report that we continue to plan. We know that this was the first day of the trial, and our plans encompass everything. And so we know that this is going to go on for several weeks, and so our OSN, our Operation Safety Net planning, does just that. It encompasses that. At this time, you're going to hear from other leadership of our Operation Safety Net. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Chief. I'm Dave Hutchinson, the Sheriff of Hennepin County. Again, we're just echoing what the Chief said of thank you for being peaceful. We have been saying that for weeks. The security around the Government Center is still intact, and it's to prevent anything from happening. But if today is something that we can see in the future, I'm very proud of people for exercising their First Amendment right legally and lawfully, and we appreciate that. As far as the continue of the trial, this group will pivot and we'll learn and adapt to whatever happens to the trial. But again, it's going to be safe. We're going to do our job to make sure people exercise their First Amendment right legally and lawfully. And if need be, we will maintain order and peace But again, thank you for being peaceful. We do need peace for justice, and we need justice for peace. Thank you very much, and I think now Colonel Langer is going to speak to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff. So my name is Matt Langer. I have the honor and privilege of serving as Chief of the Minnesota State Patrol. Just a few comments today. Number one, I'll continue to underscore the value of the planning and the preparation and the coordination of the broader public safety community, some of which is represented here today. It's going to be very important as we move through this period of time. There are many unknowns with the court process, and we're part of those unknowns, wondering and waiting for the court to move forward with whatever next steps look like and how we can respond accordingly. The plan we have been collectively working on is flexible. We're nimble and able to respond to whatever emerges. It's also important to point out that it's based upon public safety and the two missions we continue to outline: protecting constitutional rights to assemble and let your voice be heard, and to ensure that there isn't any property destruction or threat against people or property. But we also don't have any preconceived notion about what potential outcomes might be coming our way or how people might respond. Lastly, I'll underscore what both the Chief and Sheriff said, that we're very thankful to everyone who came out both yesterday and today and let their voice be heard in a way that was peaceful, and in demonstrating a way that Minnesota can do this the right way. It didn't require any law enforcement response at all, which is the best kind of protest from my point of view. It was a wonderful statement about how this can be done the right way and in a way that Minnesota sees time and time again, and I hope that continues through this period of time in our state's history. I now have the opportunity to introduce John Harrington, Minnesota's Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. Commissioner.
Good afternoon. My name is John Harrington. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, and a couple quick pieces of information, the first of which is almost a non-piece of information. There continues to be no credible imminent threats to the trial or to the Hennepin County Governance Center or to the Twin Cities area that we are tracking, and I know my partner from the FBI, who's also here, will, I think, echo that comment. I think that's an important piece of information because while there is no credible threat, we have been working with community intimately to make sure that community groups, faith groups, can have their voices heard. I was exceptionally pleased with some of the conversations I had last week with interfaith congregations, ministers, synagogues, and mosques about their opportunity to come to the downtown area to make sure that they felt that they and their congregation's voice can be heard. I think last night's, yesterday afternoon or last night's silent vigil, that silent march, was emblematic of the work that so many faith leaders in our community are doing to make sure that the memory of George Floyd is not forgotten, and yet at the same time making sure that their congregations are feeling protected and safe as they continue to move forward. We are basing our work on information. So rather than rumor control, what we are basing is good, solid information, and we are very appreciative of the community that has given us calls and continues to help us understand what's going on in the community and on the ground. Our plans, as has been said, will change as the information changes, but given no credible threat, I am really optimistic that we're going to continue to move forward as our plan is laid out. As I mentioned, we've been continuing to work with community groups and business groups. That's going to continue. I know on both sides of the river, I've been really impressed with the outreach from the business community especially. Lately, they have been very, very attentive to what they can expect and what they should be doing in preparation for this. Finally, for those that are interested, and especially for those that join us on social media, know that Operation Safety Net is alive and well on both DPS and on a variety of other social media platforms, and that you can get regular updates that way, as well as tuning into the press conferences that we'll have. At this time, I have the pleasure of introducing the TAC, the Adjutant General for the state of Minnesota, General Mankey.
Thank you, Commissioner Harrington. My name is Major General Sean Mankey, and I'm privileged to be the Adjutant General for the state of Minnesota. In conjunction with the plan, we have just under 100 soldiers deployed supporting primarily the Hennepin County and Chief Arredondo around the Hennepin County Government Center. These soldiers are part of our 1st Armor Brigade, part of the 34th Red Bull Infantry Division, and they are operating in accordance with the planning that we have done up until this time. Thank you for your support. We hope for a quiet time as we move forward, and we're prepared to increase that number or decrease that number depending on what happens with the trial as we move forward. I will be followed by the Minneapolis Fire Department Chief Tyner.
Thank you, General Mankey. The Minneapolis Fire Department stands ready to respond to any fires or emergencies that may arise as a result of civil unrest or anything else at this time. As the case moves closer to going to the jury, we are prepared to staff up, and we are confident that we will have the number of firefighters available to us to implement the strategies that we have determined for civil unrest. However, with that being said, if we do need to increase our response capabilities, we do have mutual aid agreements in place with both our partners in St. Paul and the surrounding communities surrounding Minneapolis to assist us if needed. And if we need to increase our capabilities beyond that, we have the help of the State Fire Marshal to find us additional resources. So with that, we have been planning for months along with all of these agencies that you see here with us, and we are confident that should any problems arise, that we will be able to respond. And again, with that said, the Minneapolis Fire Department is also very happy that so far we have started out on a peaceful note, and that people are protesting peacefully and legally and the way that things should be done. And so thank you for that. Chief Arredondo.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Paul. I'm the special agent in charge of the FBI's Minneapolis field office, which serves Minnesota and the Dakotas. We continue to work very closely with the partners that are here before you today. Specifically, I want to acknowledge the comments of Commissioner Harrington and the work of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension's Fusion Center, as well as Hennepin County's Criminal Information Sharing and Assessment Group that conducted a joint risk assessment. And so that's the factual information that was referenced, and it set a good foundation for us in undertaking activity in support of Operation Safety Net. The FBI continues to support the partners with specialty resources and expertise. Our special agent bomb technicians are coming to town this week, and they're embedding with some of the other partners here, experts from the state, including the arson and fire investigators and public health officials, to ensure we have adequate resources for hazardous incident response, to ensure that any type of suspicious packages or substances are identified and quickly taken care of for public safety. Lastly, as was mentioned, the FBI has been contributing to community and public outreach, speaking with religious leaders and other community groups. One, to share a common awareness of the plans that we have put forth as a public safety collective, but also, again, to underscore the importance of community participation and the reporting of suspicious activity. And we're asking the communities to help us with our public safety mission and trust law enforcement, report information to us that you feel is important, things that don't look right or seem right in your community, so that we can take appropriate action. And so thank you again. I appreciate the collaboration of all of our partners here and the work that we'll be undertaking over the coming weeks.
With that, we'd like to open up for any questions our media partners may have.
I think it's only me, Chief.
Okay.
General Mankey mentioned that there are 100 National Guard soldiers on the streets now. How many police officers and sheriff's deputies, and what agencies are they from?
The question related to General Mankey mentioned the complement of soldiers that he currently has for this phase of the operation right now. About 100 or so of the general soldiers are out deployed in our city. As far as the number of officers, I will tell you that right now, besides Minneapolis, certainly our Hennepin County deputies, there are also our state patrol complement. So there will be other agencies that will continue to build up throughout the phases. We mentioned that Operation Safety Net has 4 phases. One has been the pre-planning. We have just started phase 2, which is the start of jury selection process. And then phase 3, which would be ultimately if there is a jury verdict, which I think all of our metro-wide community will see a visible optical ramp-up of those resources. And then phase 4 will be the demobilization phase. So currently we have about 12 or so agencies are part of the mutual aid. Again, that number could increase over time.
How many officers total are on this detail right now out in Minneapolis? Do you have even an approximate number?
I would say it's well over 100 officers. I can get you some more of those specific details in terms of the number of officers.
And in terms of those mutual aid partners, I noticed, we have departments as far away as St. Cloud and around greater Minnesota involved in this. Have any of them been activated yet? And are any of them here in Minneapolis today?
The question was, of those agencies that operate out of greater Minnesota, have any of them been activated as of today? I don't have that answer for you right now.
So is it primarily MPD, sheriffs, and the state patrols that are on the ground now, of those officers that you mentioned?
Yeah, the primary public safety resources that have been in place from phase 1 to now phase 2 are representative of the individual jurisdictions you see behind me.
Under what circumstances would you be bringing in the additional officers that are part of the mutual aid agreement?
Yes, so the situations where we would be ramping up those additional jurisdictions from outside of the area, that's part of that phase-in process. So our coordination team, our Operation Safety Net coordination team, they have the dates, they have the times, they have the shifts worked out. And so I'm sure at our next weekly briefing we can get you some more information on that.
You've probably seen some of the criticism in the news and elsewhere about the security buildup, the fencing, the razor wire, and there's people arguing that this sends the message that protesters will become violent, and this is overkill. How do you respond to that criticism?
The question being, there's been some criticism from some in our communities regarding all of the preparations they've seen, from the barricades, the fencing, the razor wire. My response to that is that as a unified command, as part of Operation Safety Net, all of the leaders that you see standing behind me, we have all been very intentional about the public safety of our metro area and of our state. We recognize lessons learned from last year, and so we've tried to balance that. But our first and primary concern is for the safety of our people here in the city, and certainly here in greater Minnesota. And so that's going to be first and primary. But we have also done an important, many of us talked about the outreach. Commissioner Harrington talked about the outreach. Our Special Agent in Charge, Paul, talked about the outreach. Meeting with our faith leaders, meeting with organizations and community members. That's been a part of what's been taken into this planning as well. We know that for some, seeing a lot of our folks in this uniform, for some can be traumatic. And we've taken that into account too. And so we've been balancing that with what it looks like environmentally, with fencing and barricades, but also recognizing we have to keep our community safe. So.
Can we expect to see the posture that we're seeing now with the officers and National Guard soldiers on the streets? Can we expect to see similar numbers if continuing to stay out on the streets and patrol, if there is a delay of weeks or months in the trial, or would that be drawn down at all if there's nothing happening in the courthouse? Yeah,
as Colonel Langer mentioned, we don't dictate the court process or any sort of outcomes, and we have no preconceived notions on that. Our plans obviously take into account, if it's going to be a protracted period of time, staffing, obviously resources, but we will certainly, as a unified command, we will certainly have those discussions. We are briefing and having conversations daily, and so we'll be flexible. Our plans will be flexible. They'll be adaptable. But our primary concern, again, is making sure that everyone can peacefully practice their First Amendment rights, but keeping our area safe.
Thanks. Okay, thank you very, very much, everyone, for being here.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
Originally, what we did not have was special agent in charge of the FBI for the Minnesota and Dakotas, Michael, Paul, common spelling on both. Thank you all for being here.